Good day, everyone. A0 here. So, this video will be covering the three most popular tablet slash hybrid laptops on the market and the currently available latest iterations. We have here the M2 powered iPad Pro 12.9 inch screen, the Samsung Galaxy Tab S8 Ultra, and on the far right, the Microsoft Surface Pro 9. So let's get into it. So these versions that I have specifically, just so you know the configurations, we have the Surface Pro 9 with the 256 gigabyte storage, 8 gigabytes of RAM, i5 model. The S8 Ultra is the base model with 128 gigabytes of storage, 8 gigabytes of RAM, and the Snapdragon Gen 1 chip inside of it. Some mobile chip that powers a lot of the last couple years worth of Androids, and they moved on to the Gen 2 Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 that is, which will be in the upcoming Ultra or Snap Galaxy S9 Ultra, which will be coming out pretty soon here. Their pre-orders are already up for it. And then the M2 chip in the iPad Pro 12.9 is the 1 terabyte model with 16 gigabytes of RAM. As only the 1 and 2 terabyte storage options come with the 16 gigabytes of RAM, and I wanted that gram amount, so I went ahead and went for the 1 terabyte version. So I've had time to play with all of these. I've owned all of them for quite some time, since they've come out last year. And yeah, let's get into it. So basically, if you're looking for a tablet, there's going to be a couple things that you want to think about. One that a lot of people think about is price. The iPad and the configuration I got is the most expensive one up here. However, you can get the base model with 128 gigabytes of storage, which is a lot less and more similarly priced to all the other here. However, there's going to be some differences with each configuration depending on the accessories you get. None of these come with keyboards, for example. I had to buy all these separately. Only the Galaxy Tab S8 Ultra comes with the S Pen, or the stylus used with the tablet. The Apple Pencil 2 you have to buy separately, and the Surface pen you have to buy separately as well. The nice thing about the Surface is the keyboard and the pen come together in one package, and it actually costs less than just the keyboard for those two devices. So that's a huge advantage as far as the accessory part for buying that. So that's one plus for the Surface Pro. So deciding between these tablets is going to depend largely on your workflow and what you need it for. For example, the Surface Pro 9 comes with the full version of Windows 11 on it, which is great. Windows has a lot of versatility. You can do a lot of things with the full operating system compared to iPad OS or Android. However, one thing software side that a lot of people do not point out that was frustrating to me about the Surface is the Microsoft Office suite does not come with Microsoft Windows. You have to purchase that separately, and it's a subscription-based purchase. So you'll be paying monthly for that subscription versus the Galaxy comes with Office type of applications, Google Sheets, Google Docs, etc., that come for free, and you can use those to create, Word docs, spreadsheets, and things like that. So it's very handy that it comes with it. And it also comes with a PowerPoint type of application that Google makes. So you can use all those, and you can get the Office Suite on it as well if you prefer that through the App Store. Of course, that would cost. But with Microsoft, the thing that's increasingly frustrated me about Windows is that it doesn't come with a lot of apps that you can use right on it. It comes with WordPad, which is okay, but it's not as good as Word. And again, you have to pay for Word, and it's a subscription, not just a purchase. So then there's the iPad, which comes with Apple's kind of Office Suite as well, Pages, and the spreadsheet type of application, as well as an Excel type of application. So those all come for free with these two devices. And with the iPad, not only do you get those, but you also get some creative apps for free, including iMovie and GarageBand, which have huge applications, can be used for a lot of different things, including making YouTube videos like this one. So it's very good that even though it's a little higher cost, it comes with these applications for free, and you don't ever have to pay for them or subscription or anything. You just download them through the App Store and you're good to go. A lot of us are more familiar with Microsoft Office Suite. I mean, I personally grew up with Microsoft. I've been using it since Windows 95, and even before that. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't come with it no more, so that's a huge detriment, and that's been a big kind of contending point for me with Microsoft Windows in general. Then there's the other thing on the application side where, it's more restrictive on these two because these two are tablet first. So, for example, I have a smaller iPad that I don't have a keyboard for at all, and I don't really need it because I use it as a tablet, watching videos, things like that, listening to music, more leisurely things. Having the keyboard is great, when you need to type up a document or anything like that. But it still has a very good touch screen first software, and same with the Android versus Windows, which a lot of people I've heard in video set has improved, but I didn't last very long using the Surface without a keyboard. I bought my keyboard case for this one a lot quicker than I did for Android or iPad because I just couldn't get around with just touch very well. Windows is still, a keyboard and mouse first operating system, and they've made it a little more touch friendly, but honestly, at this point, they may need to just make a separate touch first version of Windows, which they've tried in the past and it didn't work out too great, but it just isn't there yet for me. So definitely with this device, you're going to need the keyboard more than likely versus the other two where you can get away with not having a keyboard. I mean, you're going to type slower on your documents using the on-screen keyboard and things like that, but just the operating systems are set up to be touch first. So they're very touch friendly. Outside of that, I mean, it just depends on what kind of programs you use. If you're in the Apple ecosystem already, then your Mac apps and things like that, a lot of them are starting to show up on there, including Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro, which a lot of people are happy about finally coming to the iPad more recently. I haven't tried them out yet, but I will be trying out Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro on there very soon. I already have the Mac versions of them. I'm not a fan of subscription-based services myself. I'd rather just purchase it and have it and own it. But that's just me. It is nice that the option is there though, because I do prefer using touch devices with video editing, things like that. I've greatly enjoyed doing that on the iPad compared to using a Mac for that. And then of course, Android has a variety of apps available, but as far as full programs and things, Windows still has a definite advantage there. although Android and iPad OS are starting to catch up all the time. As far as as far as that, you can definitely, that should be a huge factor in your decision, the software and what programs you're going to be using and what you're going to be using the device for. To go into some other things hardware-wise, we have the mini LED 120 hertz screen on the iPad Pro, 12.9 inch, the AMOLED OLED display on the S8 Ultra, and a LCD 120 hertz screen on the Windows Surface Pro 9. My opinion, the screen that's the nicest, just to kind of cut to the chase, is the S8 Ultra screen. For movies, it looks fantastic. For any kind of videos, the iPad is a close second. Mini LED does look great, but there's the booming feature or issue that many of you have heard about in other videos, I'm sure, and it's definitely something that you do notice, especially at night. But it's still an amazing screen, and everything looks really good on it, and it does get brighter than the other two, so that is a huge advantage for outside use or when it's really sunny, because it's definitely the brightest panel out of the three, and so it has the best visibility, angles, reflectivity. I would say it's the best in all of that. But all that said, the S8 Ultra still looks better when you're watching a movie. And HDR, the OLED screen is it's amazing. And the Surface would be last in that category. It's not the best for videos and the screen, but it is 120 hertz, which is awesome. They all hit that mark, so all of them look smooth, scrolling and gaming, things like that. It just, not being OLED or mini LED is not going to be as bright, especially with HDR, and it's just not going to look as good with like 4K and things like that. And moving on to speakers, that one is pretty close, I would say, but I'll give the edge to the iPad Pro. Apple does an amazing job making great sounding speakers with great bass and these thin form factor devices, and they don't disappoint with the newest iPads. The Samsung is in second. I think it sounds really good. It's not as loud and as deep a bass as the iPad, which is where the iPad gets the edge, but the clarity is right there, and it does sound really good. You can kind of pick apart sounds really well, so they did a good job of the tuning and things of that nature. But like for loudness, the iPad is better, and it's still very clear and crisp sounding. And the Surface Pro comes in third on that one as well. It seems more like the Surface is kind of like an office machine, which is kind of a perfect application for it. It's doesn't have the best screen or the best speakers. It's still good compared to like some other laptops, especially having the 120 hertz gives it an edge over a lot of Windows laptops that don't have that. But outside of that, compared to these two, it's in third as far as screen and sound. Now, as far as webcam, a lot of people work from home, hybrid or full time, video conferencing and things like that on these devices. As far as that, I would say the Surface Pro 9 is very good. I would actually give it the edge over the other two in that category. And then the S8 Ultra would be second. Mainly for the placement. Being here in the top center, like a laptop, is so much better than the iPads being kind of across. As you can see on the edge, that's an unfortunate placement there, but it still looks good. Microphone quality is really good on the iPad. I don't know, Apple claims it has studio quality mics, and I don't know the accuracy of that, but they definitely sound really good. And there's just like 5 mics on it. So, that definitely helps it capture the sound a lot better than the other devices. Um, and the picture quality is really good too. And I really love the um, center stage feature. It does kind of help with the camera being off centered. So the camera kind of follows you around, especially if you're standing when you're presenting or anything like that, or if you do have to present something like on a whiteboard or something. This is really good for that kind of stuff. The S8 does have auto framing, and the Surface Pro also does have some extra camera features if you get the 5G version with the mobile chip inside of it, the SQ3, instead of the Intel chips. However, the SQ3's performance was concerning to me. It's not as good as the Intel models from what I've seen. So I stuck with the Intel model because I wanted that extra performance myself. So overall, as far as screen and the cameras and the sound, I would probably give the edge to the S8 Ultra, just because it's kind of second in a lot of the categories. Again, I think it has the best screen, so it is first in that one. But the screen doesn't get very bright, so outdoor-wise, the screen isn't the greatest. And even indoors when it's really bright, if you're in a room like this and the sun's coming through with all these windows in here and stuff, it's going to be a little harder to see the screen. It's not as reflective, but it's still decently enough of reflective. And again, at night, it completely dominates, in my opinion, compared to the other two. So I would give the edge to that. As far as accessories, Magic Keyboard is very nice. A lot of people talk about the Magic Keyboard glowingly, and I understand why completely, because it's a really nice keyboard. One thing to note, if you have larger hands, I mean, mine are decently big, but I've seen bigger, so it's even worse if you have even bigger hands. It is kind of the smallest of the keyboards here as far as width. It's fine. I can still type okay. But sometimes your hands are kind of close, so I'd imagine people with even larger hands than myself could struggle with that. Being 12.9 inches compared to 14.6 inches, and this one being widescreen angle-wise, so it's just wider than the other two, and that one's a 13-inch screen, so it has a little extra width that helps with that. And also the trackpad on the Magic Keyboard is smaller, but it's a very nice trackpad as far as it being flat, very clicky, and all of that. If this was an 11-inch, I probably wouldn't like it, to be honest, because if it was any thinner than this, that would probably be a problem for me and other people with bigger hands. But at this size it's just right as far as that. As far as the S8 Ultra, I really like the keyboard on this. It's very clicky, very not as much travel, but it feels fine still. And it has the full function row keys. It's backlit. It is pricey, costing $350 like the Magic Keyboard at full price. But if you could find a discount on it, it's definitely worth it. The biggest downside to this one is its build quality. It's you can kind of move it around a lot, and it doesn't flex that much, but it does flex more than the Magic Keyboard, which doesn't really flex at all. And the Surface, you can tell these two companies have been doing it for longer than Samsung with these bigger keyboard cases. I would say the build quality is better on these two compared to this one. The touchpad is really huge on this one, as far as it's bigger than the others. And it is the diving board type that kind of goes, side to side. However, if you have it on a desk like this, it works great. It feels almost like it's not even the diving board type because it doesn't move that much. But if you have it like in a different situation, like you try to put in your lap, which is, it isn't very lappable, it doesn't work out too great. So just be mindful of that. If there's any flex to it, it could be problematic for this trackpad here. As far as the surface, I love the design of this one. Probably the most. Having this felt type material here is really nice. Just feels nice on the hands. Travel is good. The key clickiness is good. It has the function rope key. You can house the Surface Pen in here, and it's charging while it's in there, and it also keeps it, protected, which is the biggest problem with the iPad. When you have the Apple Pencil 2 on the top, next here at the top, it's kind of exposed. So when you flip the case closed, it's just kind of hanging out there and get knocked down. Whereas this one's protected in here, and this one for the S8 Ultra is in this, under this flap here. That also comes with the keyboard case, this back part that kind of gives it a stand like the Surface, which comes with theirs automatically, and it also goes pretty low. It has a very good amount of angles, just like the Surface. So they did a good job on the back side of this, having the protection for the pen and the flap, but this one would probably be in third just because of how floppy this part is. I heard the new S9 is supposed to have and corrected that, so hopefully it's a little better. And again, on the desk it's not so noticeable because you don't move around that much, but if you have it in another situation where it's not on the desk, then it's a lot more noticeable, whereas with these two it's not as much. The Magic Keyboard gets points because it's the most lappable out of all these. In fact, I wouldn't even try to lap this one. It's definitely more of a desk just because of the size. And this one you can, but for me, the part here, the kickstand, which is really nice, it comes with it, is awesome, but it's made out of metal, so aluminum, so it digs into your legs kind of. So I don't like lapping this one at all either, even though it would be a little better than this one just outside the comfort part. Maybe I had a pillow or something on my legs, it worked a lot better. This one for me is very close between these two, Magic Keyboard and the Surface one, but I'm gonna give the Surface the edge here. This is the one category that I think the Surface gets a little overlooked at for two reasons. One, like I said, this having the felt, having the back, it's backlit, and the full function rope key is really nice. The Magic Keyboard is missing the function rope keys, which for its cost, it's definitely disappointing that it doesn't have that. And then also it's the least expensive out of these three, and even the configuration that comes with the Surface Pen. So you get the pen and this for less than just these accessories on these two, which is amazing value, even brand new compared to those two, considering it comes with the pen as well. The S Pen comes with the Galaxy S8 series, so all of the Galaxy S8s, just like the 9s, will all have it. So that's a big plus for Samsung, because you don't have to buy that separately in general compared to the other two devices. But this is the better situation for cost and convenience because it comes with both, and having that attached there like that, I mean, Apple could have probably done something like that. I do like, and what should also be mentioned, is the Magic Keyboard comes with the extra USB-C port that can only be used for charging, not data transfers, but that's still huge because the iPad only has one USB-C port built in, unlike the Surface that has two, and they're Thunderbolt ports just like on the iPad. But with the keyboard, Magic Keyboard, you get a second one additionally. It can only be used for charging, but it still, frees up this one. So that was a huge reason why I even wanted to get the Magic Keyboard, just to free up that port. So it's like you have two ports now, basically, kind of like the M1 MacBook Air. Since you have one of those ports to charge, then you have the other one free. With the iPad, you only had one to charge or to use for data transfers or dock or whatever. Now you kind of have two with the Magic Keyboard, so that is nice. Um, I honestly think this was a little overpriced. I didn't pay full price for it. I got a deal for it because I got this when it came out. They had deals for the pre-orders and things, so I didn't pay the full price for it. At $350, it is nice that it's backlit. It has the function row keys, but it doesn't have a USB port or anything like that. So that's another reason why I have this one in third. If it was less costly, I think this one would move up a bit, even though it's a little flimsy. I don't think that's as huge as some people might say it is, because really you want to be using this on the desk just because of the size anyways, so you don't want to have this on your lap. So on the desk, it's not as noticeable. It's fine. So it's not as big of an issue to me as just paying so much for it, and you don't get a USB port, like that one, which would have made me okay more with paying that price, basically. So out of the three accessories for the keyboard cases, I gotta give the edge to the Surface Pro 9. Coming with the pin and this, and having it angled is also another kind of underrated part of it. It's really nice when you're typing long, have it like that instead of having it flat, for me at least. So that is a big part. And I also love that it's color coordinated to be the same color as the Pros. The funny thing about it is, being that this is the one that's probably more than any of the other two for offices, for office work and things like that, and it's the one that comes in fun colors versus the other two. This one only comes in the black. That one only comes in the space gray or silver. So you have at least a little option. The S9 will give you a beige option as well, but the Surface had the right idea of having multiple color options, even for their Pro device. So points to Microsoft for that part. As far as like biometric things go, the Surface uses Windows Hello with the camera in the front here, the selfie camera, and I gotta say it works really well. There was some times I had issues with it, not recognizing things, and I had to go into the settings, but once I did that, it worked great. It has a great range. I could be pretty far from the camera and I'll recognize my face and unlock, whereas with the iPad, and especially the S8 Ultra, I have to get in a little closer. The iPad probably is the best for like at low light. It can still see my face and unlock even when the lights are pretty low, when it's pretty dark. This one does pretty well too. But as far as that, I would have to give the Surface an edge there. Apple's is really good, but again, being off to the side hurts it a bit, where this one's right in the center and can see my face a little better, a little more distant, it seems, just because of the placement. And Samsung's isn't great. It does have fingerprint, which I use kind of more to unlock, because it works really well. I do like that they give you both options on this, which they could on the other two devices, and I don't know why they don't. But so this one, it's kind of a tie. I do like Windows Hello, but I like that this one gives you options, because I feel like, especially during the pandemic, you have masks on and things, and I still wear masks on buses, for example. So if I took these on a bus, this would be a little easier to unlock just using my finger instead of having to pull my mask down or whatever. So it does get points for that for me. I don't see there's any reason, in particular the iPad, not to have both options. But even with laptops, a lot of laptops will have a button that you can just press to log in with. So they should have thought of something like that. Overall hardware, the iPad wins there. Just the cut that one short because the M2 chip is amazingly powerful, even with the 8 GB RAM models of the iPad. Um, Even with the M1 model, they're great for battery efficiency and they're very powerful. Now that we're starting to get pro apps that can take advantage of that power, and they're starting to, allow more RAM to be used by apps and things like that. It's starting to show more and more. Um, Gaming wise, the iPad is probably the best device out of these for gaming. They can, do the max settings on any of the mobile games pretty much. If you're doing gaming streaming, it looks great on the mini LED screen. The Samsung is great for streaming games as well, just because the screen is massive, and the OLED, to me, again, is the best screen as far as looking wise. But as far as mobile gaming, there's no issues today, but the M2 chip is going to be powerful, a year or two from now still. Whereas, this next chip, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, is already a pretty big leap over the Gen 1 year over year. So, once games start getting even more optimized for these more powerful chips, this is going to kind of get left behind. It is the least powerful specs wise out of the three. The i5 is a good chip, but gaming wise, the gaming or the video card in here, the GPU, it's not great. From what I've tried with gaming, it didn't do very good. I couldn't play a lot of my Steam games, for example. It did play some games, and it did play some games from my other sites, like Epic Games, but I was a little disappointed in that part of it. I expected it to be a little more powerful. I have seen some videos that people had better luck than I did using it as a gaming machine. And technically you could put an eGPU connected to it. So with additional things, it can be a great gaming rig, but and it has a fan in it. Out of all of them, none of them have fans except for this one. So should deal with the heat and things like that a lot better as well. But outside of that, I would give the edge to the iPad. It's just a much better gaming machine. You don't have to buy anything additional. The mobile games are starting to look really, really good. Console quality, a lot of them, top games and things like that. And it handles them all with ease, on the M2 chip. I don't notice my iPad heating up too much and things like that. I heard some things about the iPhones heating up a lot, and even some people with the smaller size iPads like the mini, but I haven't had any issues with that. I haven't gamed a ton. I'm more of a console gamer than a mobile gamer, but testing it out and trying some of the mobile games that I do play, no issues on any of them. But again, there's the iPad, as far as thinking of the future proofing. The M2 chip is already the most powerful out of the three, and so it's going to be the longest lasting of the three. And Apple will support generally their tablets very long after they come onto the market, so that's another advantage there. But that's kind of going back into the software thing where it'll continually receive updates, versus Samsung has jumped to 4 years with this one, and Microsoft will keep supporting Windows 11 until the next Windows comes out. So as far as support, Apple probably has the edge, but Windows is right there. Microsoft, and being the 12th gen Intel chips, they're pretty new chips as well. They're going to last, so you don't have to worry about that. With mobile chips is always a concern because they always are improving year over year. So although I think the Snapdragons, since this chip, the 8 Gen 1, has improved a lot compared to the past Snapdragon chips. But like I said, Gen 2 is even a pretty big boost over Gen 1. According to the numbers Samsung's been throwing out, 41% better GPU performance. That's quite a big jump. So just got to think about that when you're going to purchase these. Also, for this particular tablet, the S9 Ultra is right around the corner. So if you're looking at this, this will be less expensive, so it still will be really good. The S9 Ultra, in my opinion, didn't update a whole lot besides the chip, so the performance will be better. It won't be super noticeable today, but it will be in the future for longevity and things like that. And again, as apps take more advantage of that extra processing power. Samsung is always working on getting more apps into Android ecosystem, and there's always kind of newer apps that were only on iPad coming to Android. So as far as like the app ecosystem, that's not as huge a concern to me. I know some people are. Again, as far as what I recommend is just going by what you already use for the most part. Like if you already have iPhone and Mac and have a bunch of apps for those, it's going to benefit you to stay into that ecosystem and just get the iPad, because some of those apps will work on the iPad from the iPhone and the Mac, and you'll already be familiar with that system and how that works. I like to mix it up and have a little bit of all of them. I use an Android phone primarily, but I've been switching to Mac as my personal computer recently. So you just depends what you like as far as software and what you kind of prioritize. I like having a software that's easy, works, and you don't have to pay a bunch extra for extra apps that you need. And I like that Apple stuff comes default, like the iPhone, the iPad, and the Mac all come with a Office suite of programs you can download for free, versus having to buy additional software with Windows. And Android, a lot of their applications are free, so that's also a plus for them as well. Just to get down to the verdict, so basically Apple in general, but with the iPad in particular, it's going to cost the most out of all these. It's not upgradable. Once you buy it, so you always want to buy the configuration that you can afford and works best for you. I wanted 16 gigabytes of RAM, for example, so I had to go at least 1 terabyte. But usually I like to get the 5G version, but I didn't this time because it costs so much just to get the 1 terabyte version. So I got Wi-Fi only. This one only had Wi-Fi, unfortunately, but I got the base model for that because you can add SD cards to expand the storage up to 1 terabyte, which is a huge plus. I'm definitely glad they still have it on the S9 series, even though they added waterproofing to it. Because that's a big deal to me, having the SD card expansion slot. This one doesn't have SD card, but you can actually upgrade the storage on these, the SSDs. It's a pretty easy process to open the back end, and then you just have to purchase a compatible SSD pop in there. So that's a huge advantage for the Surface Pro compared to the other two, which don't allow you to update the storage. You're stuck with what you buy, 1 terabyte in my case, and 128 gigabytes. But again, I put a 1 terabyte card in here, so it technically has more storage than the iPad now, because I put a 1 terabyte card in there. And this has a 256 gigabyte storage, but I could always upgrade that if I needed to more storage. This does have 2 USB Thunderbolt 4 ports. It only has one, and it's not Thunderbolt. It's USB 3.2, and this one has 1 Thunderbolt port, USB-C. So that's a big advantage for the Surface. Again, if you get the Magic Keyboard, that does give you a second port. Only it's not Thunderbolt, it's only for charging, USB-C charging pass-through. So it's handy just to open up the other port if you do need to charge your iPad while you're working. But having 2 built in is nice. Plus the Surface Connect port, so it technically has a separate charging port plus the 2. So definitely the best as far as ports. It's not even really close. But as other than that, and you know, it has some good things with the hardware. I like the i5. There's the i7 option, which is even more powerful chip, um, and it does beat this in performance to S8 Ultra, which is the only one now using a mobile chip still. Although you have that option with this, but the performance does drop uh, a bit. Where the iPad only has the M2 option, unless you get, you know, an older one that has a mobile chip. But they're starting to put laptop quality chips into the iPad Pro lines since the M1, and I'm not complaining about that because it still has a lot of advantages of the smartphone chips, the mobile chips being extremely efficient battery wise. In fact, it would probably be the best as far as battery out of the three. Although the S8 Ultra is great for battery, and leaving this in standby mode, like how it is now, just with the screen off and just standby, this thing can last for a long time. I'm surprised sometimes where I come to grab it, I haven't used it in like a week, and I expect the battery to be dead. I plug it in right away, and it still has battery. Very low, it's usually like under 20% or something, but it still has battery, and I haven't touched it in a week. So that's pretty impressive. This also does too. It has a kind of a sleep mode, and it's pretty impressive. I can show you. You push the button, and the Windows logo pops up, and then not too long from there, it will get to the login screen, and there it is. And it can see my face from even back here, so it logged me in. That's awesome. But from pushing the button to logging in is way faster than normal laptops with Windows. So I do like that. That is one thing I want to shout out on the Windows machine, because yeah, that's one of the reasons why I started liking tablets more, is because they start up fast. You kind of get into your work fast or whatever you're doing, and you know, then you'd be done and just kind of, you know, put it in standby mode. And they definitely did a good job with that, making it more tablet-like in that way. And some of those things is just, like you said, it's not the most touch-friendly. You know, the touchscreen works great. It's not that. It's just the software is not designed for a touch-first interface. It's still designed for keyboard and mouse. So navigating through this thing, especially with a lot of the programs, because applications are all designed to be touch first, programs are not. So even though Windows is making changes to make it more touch friendly, its programs are still keyboard and mouse first, and some only. So they don't work with touch at all. So it's important to know that, and you know, be okay with that. Because if you want a tablet, you know, these are kind of more tablety, and they can still do a lot of laptop performance things, especially now that they're starting to put pro apps on the iPad. And Samsung already had the DeX mode, which a lot of people are familiar with, which makes it more like a laptop setup where you have floating windows and things like that, and a dock at the bottom, and tiles instead of, you know, just your app layout, things like that. So y'all have good and bad, pluses and minuses. So make your choices accordingly, based on your needs and your budget. Although with these three, they're all going to be kind of more expensive. You know, you have, you know, don't have the budget for that, you can always look at like the Google offering. They just came out with the Pixel tablet. You know, less powerful specs, but it still does great for an Android tablet. You know, they got the iPad 10, which is a lot less. It's $450 starting. Then, you know, they have the Surface Pro Go machines. I believe the 3 is the newest one, which use the Intel Pentium chip, so they're not nearly as powerful, and had like 4 gigabytes of RAM, but they still have access to full versions of Windows, and you know, you get a keyboard and things like that for them. So yeah, all these tablets do great for different things. In my opinion, the overall best just depends on your what you're using it for. Like for entertainment, the Surface, the S8 Ultra, excuse me, is probably the best mix, just because the screen is the best quality. For gaming is great, especially streaming gaming. you know, like with Xbox Game Pass, things like that. As far as mobile gaming, the iPad probably takes the cake. As it's a little more square, smaller screen, so it's easier to handle and kind of push those screens with buttons when you're holding it in hand. Well, this is very light, so it's not that bad if you're holding it up. And it just has a lot of options for mobile games on the iPad. Looks great, 128 hertz, all that, mini LED, best sound quality. And yeah, for office stuff, you know, depending on the programs you need, this is full Windows. A lot of office work requires Windows programs, so that kind of gives it an automatic win there. Although, you know, it just depends on your office, because you know, some offices use Mac, and iPad's going to be great for that because it works with Mac well. And then, you know, Android does work with Windows pretty well. I can use it as a second screen, for example, on my Windows laptop, which is awesome, and things of that nature. And you know, some app compatibility with Windows from Android apps. But yeah, and so it just depends on a couple of those things. iPad, you know, with Final Cut Pro now is a very great machine for creators and creatives. I mean, you can literally film, edit, and post videos with that device alone now, which you can't say with a lot of devices, and it worked very well. You know, with DaVinci Resolve, LumaFusion, which is also coming to Android. It's not already by the time this video comes out, and Final Cut Pro now. So you got that. You got Logic Pro. So you have a lot of great apps. Of course, this is full Windows, so you have access to a lot of great apps for editing and music making, things like that. More ports to connect things, and you need accessories like a MIDI controller and things like that. So they all have advantages. The iPad, you can get 5G on all the models. With the M2, this one you have to get a slightly less spec version, just because the chip isn't as good as Intel's chips. So you get the 5G model. You do get some benefits with the camera. I don't have the 5G model, so I haven't been able to test those out, but there's some things you do get with the selfie camera that enhance that one. And then the Samsung, which has a lot of great things. I know people that have used Samsung tabs for business using the DeX mode, and they work fine, and you know, they run the whole business on it. You know, they don't use laptops, they just use that. So it can be used in that way as well. And there's a lot of great apps on Android for that, but it just, again, depends on your business needs and your needs. You know, as far as creative things, you know, it's getting LumaFusion. It already has other apps, you know, for drawing, things like that. The S Pen works great for that. I would say overall, I didn't speak of that accessory. The S Pen gets a huge advantage just because it comes with the tablet, and it works really well. It's optimized for Samsung's apps. But the Apple Pencil 2, I would give the overall edge to. Yes, it's a little more expensive than the others, but it works really well. A lot of artists seem to greatly enjoy it from me talking to artists and things like that. It has a lot of great applications to use for art. I personally use Procreate, and it's a great application. Yeah, and then Windows has a lot of options too. The Surface Pen is not bad at all. For me, it's third just because it's close to the S Pen, but the S Pen's free. You can't beat free, or you know, coming with it. So that's a huge advantage for that. And I think this S Pen is very comfortable in the hand when you're writing or drawing. So that kind of takes it for me. But again, I do like this keyboard a lot. It's probably the best out of them as far as that. The design of the Magic Keyboard is really cool, and I understand why they don't have function keys, because it would kind of be right under the iPad here and kind of bump your fingers and stuff. So I definitely get it. But yeah, they gotta figure out a way to get the functional key in there. Maybe the rumored bigger screen iPad will have a Magic Keyboard that has that, since it'll have more room to work with. Um, but that's just a rumor right now. We'll see if they actually make a bigger than 12.9-inch iPad Pro in the future here, and so it doesn't change, those of us that have a 12.9, because I'm pretty satisfied with it. I'm gonna upgrade to a slightly bigger screen, just for functional keys. So, yeah, that's kind of my overview of all the tablets. If you have any questions, definitely let me know down in the comments. And thanks for watching, guys.